Hi, how are you? Nice to be here again. Well, this video will be totally different. We're going to taste two wines from the same varietal. We're going to taste Sauvignon Blanc. By the way, when you talk about Chile and you think about wine, mainly you think about red. But let me tell you that today Sauvignon Blanc is the second most planted varietal in Chile after Cabernet Sauvignon. We are producing more Sauvignon Blanc than New Zealand. So things have changed a lot since these climate areas were discovered, especially in this case on the coast. So the first Sauvignon Blanc that we're gonna taste is from Leyda. Okay, from now on, the rest of September and a part of October, we're gonna talk about Undurraga Winery. Undurraga Winery was established in 1870 in Maipo Valley, in the area in between mountains, in between the Andes mountain range and the coastal mountain range, okay, by Francisco Undurraga. Remember that these wineries start being established in 1850 when all these people brought farm stocks from France, mainly Central Europe, and start planting more, refined varietals. So let's go back to Leyda. So the first Sauvignon Blanc, as I told you before, is from Leyda Valley. Leyda Valley is about 96 kilometers south of west from Santiago. Okay, so Leyda Valley was planted. The first vineyards were planted in 1998. But what happens with Leyda many years ago, after Leyda was established, the SAC, the Agricultural Livestock Service, which is in charge of categorizing the denomination of origin, the varietals, accepting that we rediscovered this varietal as the Carmenere, for example, uh, made the distinct difference within all the valleys in Chile in the three distinct subregions. For example, we're in Maipo. So in Maipo, we have three distinct areas. We have Andes Maipo, we have in between mountains where Undurraga is located, and then we have coastal Maipo. But in the case of the coastal Maipo, only is on the east face of the coastal mountain range, because on the west face of the coastal mountain range, Leyda was established before the livestock service made this difference. Okay, it's a little complicated. On the other hand, we're going to taste a Sauvignon Blanc from Limari Valley. Limari Valley has been usually planted with vineyards many years ago because of the pisco productions. Okay, so that was one of the first places where the grapes arrived in colonial times. But only grapes to produce pisco. Much later than Leyda, they start planting varietals to produce still wines and sparkling wines as well. But not pisco, because you produce grapes, you make a base wine, and then you distill that. That's the pisco. So even though these two areas are located on the coastal mountain range, the two Sauvignon Blancs are totally different because of the soil composition. We're gonna we're gonna talk a little bit about this as we go. We keep on tasting. So the first wine I'm gonna pour it on my left is gonna be the Sauvignon Blanc from Leyda Valley. By the way, this is the best. Screw caps are the best, especially for Sauvignon Blancs and wines that you know you maintain the freshness. The wines are more expressive for a longer time. They don't get oxidated as fast with the cork. So it's a great closure, by the way. And then we're gonna pour the Marie. These two wines belong to the Terroir Hunter range from Undurraga Winery. So So both of them are vintage 2022. Okay. So we're going to start with Leda. First of all, let me tell you a little about because people sometimes are prejudiced because Undurraga is a large winery, but even though it's a large winery, they have the space to produce these small blocks of grapes and really small production. And the result has been amazing. These wines are really, for me, best value in the market. They're really good wines for an excellent price. Okay, so let's go. Let's start a little bit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the soil. First of all, the block is only 3.58 hectares, very low yield, only 1.2 kilos per vine. That's very little. And this was also because we have less rain this year, so the yields were lower. And for a bottle, you need 750 grams of grape for a bottle. I mean, you need a kilo. Sorry, you need a kilo of grape, 1,000 grams for a bottle of wine, which is 750 ml. So this is 1.2, a bottle and a little much, a little more. So let's go back. We're going to be more technical in this tasting. We're going to talk about clones. Um, Sauvignon Blancs is the variety, but not all the Sauvignon Blancs are genetically exactly the same. There are two ways to have a vineyard: clonal selection and massal selection. Clonal selection is when you have the clones and all the vines are genetically exactly the same. And massal selection, you can have the same variety, all the vines of the same variety, but they're not genetically identical. So what happens in a vineyard with massal selection is unique. It's unique. On the other hand, with the clonal selection, you can have more control of the outcome of how you want the expression of the wine because you know exactly the typicity of that clone and will interact with the soil of that area and the climate of that area. Okay, that's more or less the terroir. That's the concept. Okay, without the clone though. And so let's get back to the technical sheet. So here we have in this wine from Leda, we have only a clone that is from Davis University and it's called clone number one. And we have 95% of the blend is from clone one, and 5% is from the French clone 107. So both of them have different characteristics and they can be more complex when you blend them. So once the harvest was done, okay, remember that at Leda we have a strong influence in the coast from the Pacific Ocean because we have this cool current that comes from the Antarctica and makes our ocean first very cold, and we have this cool breeze that comes inland every day together with morning fog. So on the coast you don't have extreme temperatures, and the temperatures they're not too high in summer and not too low in winter. Okay, you don't get frost in that area also in the winter. So let's go back. Also, Leyda has a characteristic. There are many rolling hills, very like soft slopes, so you have different orientations. It's very particular the valley, and mainly, you know, the soils of Leyda are from the Jurassic period, and they're poor in fertility, but it's very singular because here we have a little bit of clay, and also on the subsoil we have some calcareous soil, which is very unusual in Leyda. Mainly, you will have more granite soil. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this wine was made. This wine was made, first of all, were the grapes handpicked, and the wine had a maceration, a cold maceration with the skin to extract, the aromas and the flavor. Everything is on the skin, almost everything is on the skin. So it's very important. The skin, it provides a lot of expression. So then, after that, the wine was fermented at a low temperature between 12 to 14 degrees Celsius for 12 days. And only 5% of the wine then was stored in a mainly more neutral, because we're used barrels, for 5 months in order to have more texture in the mouth, more volume, and also helps you with the aromatic complexity. This season, vintage 2022, remember that we harvest at the beginning of the year. Okay, this was harvest in April, at the beginning of April, and um, Leda has a very strong influence of minerality. You feel a lot of minerality in your mouth when you taste. It tastes a lot because of the type of soil. The harvest was done in April 5th. Okay, then let's see how the Sauvignon Blanc from Limarie was made. In this case, uh, first of all, Limarí, remember that is about 380 kilometers from Santiago, north from Santiago. And this vineyard is located very close, right by Fray Jorge National Park, which is a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. And it's like a huge forest, native trees, and that has a microclimate. And if you go there, you see there's like the clear sky, and then you see a lot of clouds up over above all this park. It's incredible because of the humidity and the microclimate that is there. Here in Limarí, when you drive through the Pan American Highway, and you can see the ocean many times. Okay, you drive north, you're gonna see something very different. You're gonna see like the soil around. It's kind of a beige, like white yellowish, because it's full of our calcium carbonate. And that's a main component of the calcareous soil. And it's really hard to find. There are not many places in Chile where you can find calcareous soil. And calcareous soils are great, really, really great and special uh, for the typicity that they provide, the expression that they provide to the wines is something that you look for. Okay, so this wine, first of all, how it was made and which clones were first of all the harvest. Since we are north from Santiago, was a little earlier, March 25, not that much, but also the the juice had a cold maceration with the skin, and then the wine was fermented in a little higher temperatures between 14 and 16 degrees Celsius for 15 days, and until the wine was dry. And also, in order to give more structure and character, eh, the wine was part of it was fermented. Only 10% of the blend was fermented in second and third use French oak barrels, and then aged there that 10% for 6 months. Okay, in this case, each vine only yield 1.7 kilos, a little more than in Lleida. So here we cannot get two bottles. We can get a bottle and a half, a little more than a bottle and a half. And now we're gonna taste both wines. And I hear what I want to do. Remember that both wines are sourced from a coastal area, but they're different. So again, diversity, diversity, and diversity in all the way. So I have in the color, they're very similar. I will say that the Leda has more like a greener hue, and the Limari more yellowish, but it's very slight the difference in terms of color. Okay, right, brilliant, perfect. Okay, so okay. Mm. In this case, in the case of the Limari Sauvignon Blanc, the clone used was Clone Davis number one. Okay, so here on the Leda, the main expression on the nose is citric notes. Talking about a little bit of grapefruit, um, and a lot of like yeah, orange zest, but mainly citrusy. But also, I feel a lot of minerality. Here on the Limari, on the other hand, there's more like green apple, also citrusity, but there's a lot of gunpowder. You feel it. It kind of, you feel it in the nose, very strong. Gunpowder and a little bit of maybe jalapeno. Jalapeno, so the character is given by the terroir. So the clones use, the climate is very similar, but the soil is very different. Okay, so the terroir is different. So again, diversity, even though both of them are on the coastal mountain range and they're not like more than maybe 400 kilometers away, they're very, very different because of the clones and the climate of the area and the soil, especially the clones and the soil, because the climate, as I told you before, is very similar. Now we're going to taste it in the mouth. Very different, both of them, but delicious Sauvignon Blanc. Um, Here, the time in the oak helps the volume and the texture in the mouth, even though you have a nice acidity, high acidity, natural acidity, because in the coast it's cooler, therefore you didn't have to correct acidity for the Sauvignon Blanc. And it the texture in the mouth, the volume has a little bit of creaminess because of the oak. It gives like roundiness. So what I recommend for these wines, for both of them, to pair, well, a nice cheese fondue could be a beautiful ceviche, fish or seafood in general. a caprese salad, a mozzarella cheese with basil, tomato, um, light fish like Chilean sea bass, grilled Chilean sea bass, as an aperitif with cheeses. Is these wines are really really amazing. I receive a lot of tourists, and when they taste these wines, they're really surprised because this change of Sauvignon Blanc being the second most important varietal in Chile is of the last years. So the image of Chile as a wine producing country is mainly for the reds. But we have improved a lot the whites since we discovered these areas on the coast and also in the south. Let me tell you, I'm going to go more in detail in the next video about this because we're going to taste Undurraga, as I told you, the rest of September and a big part of October. Let me tell you that Rafael Urrejola, who is the head winemaker of Undurraga Winery, was the third time that he was in the shortlist for the first winemaker for red wines, according to the judges of the International Wine Challenge. And this year he won. So he is considered today as the best winemaker in the world for red wines. But let me tell you, he does a great job with white wines as well. So on the next chapters, I'm going to go more in detail because we're going to taste only one wine. I want to do this exercise, tasting side by side these two Sauvignon Blancs because this exercise is something very different. Because you think, oh, Sauvignon Blancs are almost all the same when they're coastal, and they're not. They're not. There's a lot of difference. So we're going to keep on talking about the history of Undurraga, where they have vineyards, and also the this range that I love, which is called Terroir Hunter. And I see you on the next video. Okay, so I'm going to go with two glasses. Cheers.